Hello everyone. Firstly, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which you and I are meeting today and pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. Thank you for joining us today for the fifth in a series of the Queensland Tourism Awards Judges webinars to help you as an entrant through your awards submission journey. My name is Liz Ward. I'm the CEO of Tourism Tribe. I also have a lot of experience in the Tourism Awards in Queensland and Australia, and I'm very pleased to be your MC for this series. In this webinar today, we are focusing on the marketing question and how to best approach this question in your awards submission. And I am very pleased to introduce you to two members of our panel today who are going to help us with this question. And both of these speakers are members of the 2021 judging panel and have experience in past judging years as well. And they are both experts in the field of marketing and tourism. So I'd firstly like to introduce you to Professor Jane Summers. Hi, Jane. Jane is the MBA Director, and Professor of Marketing at the University of Southern Queensland. Dr. Jane Summers has over 30 years experience in the hospitality and tourism industry. Jane first cut her teeth in the industry as a shiny new graduate herself during the 80s in the heady days of the opening of Jupiter's Casino and other international hotel chains on the Gold Coast. What a ride that would have been, Jane. After many years as a practitioner, Jane moved to Toowoomba, hence why she's all rugged up there, where she returned to study and working in the academic side of the industry, teaching and researching in marketing, tourism and hospitality, where you're still working today. Thanks for joining us today, Jane. And we're also joined by the wonderful Sarah White, and Sarah is the Head of Brand, Digital and Marketing Communications at Brisbane Airport Corporation, where she leads the organisation's brand and multi-platform communications strategy, aka an absolute digital communications and marketing expert who I have a load of respect for. Previously, Sarah was the Digital Marketing Manager at Tourism and Events Queensland and has worked in the tourism industry in Queensland for more than 25 years, including stints in regional tourism, five-star hotels, small business and inbound travel. Hi, Sarah, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Jane. Nice to be here.
The marketing question accounts for 20 points of your Tourism Awards submission, and today what we're hoping to provide and share with you are valuable tips and guidance about how to best answer this component of your submission. The question is, what marketing strategies did you implement to attract or maintain your target markets to support business growth and/or business recovery/resilience? Why were these strategies chosen and what was the result? So firstly, Jane, could you please share with entrants how they can prepare for answering this question, because we know that planning is important in tackling your submission. What materials and information should they have on hand to be able to develop a quality submission when it comes to marketing and this marketing question?
Thanks, Liz. So Liz, by the time applicants get to this question, they hopefully have started to put some dot points or even finished the very first question about their business planning, which is where they would have outlined their goals and strategies and sort of the general direction for the business. So what this question really is doing is unpacking some of that in much more detail, but specifically as it relates to marketing. So it's important that the submissions really focus on the marketing part of that question and the marketing goals and strategies that we use to attract the target audiences or to actually achieve the organisation's goals. So there are sort of three key things in terms of getting ready to answer this question that applicants might find helpful. So collect any photos or images of your product offering or service offering that you want to talk about in this question. Testimonials, and in this case we're talking about testimonials that might support your target market definitions and your target market descriptions. So how do you know that these are the right target audiences for your product? So these sort of testimonials would be things like, you know, our family had a fabulous holiday here, if families are indeed one of your target audiences. Obviously, your marketing plan would sit beside you while you're writing this question, and you would take extracts from that plan around your strategies and tactics and your implementation and your measurement. In preparation for this question, you probably should also review your website, make sure it's up to date and reflects the things that you're talking about here. Any online ratings or ranking data you have from TripAdvisor or other sources that you could also use to support that that the strategies that you've put in place to attract particular target audiences are in fact, were in fact successful or have met the objectives. And examples of your marketing collateral. So if you've got any merchandising, social media posts, brochures, anything that you've produced during the qualifying period that you're going to talk about as a marketing activity, it's good to have examples of that. Now, some ways that that past submissions have put that together in a way that makes it really easily digestible for judges is to do some collage type presentations of those images. Certainly lots of graphs and more graphical visualization of any statistics that you present in this question. And so at this point in the preparation stage, you would perhaps look to get some help, or if you're good at this yourself, spend some time turning the metrics, the hard numbers, into graphs or infographics or other sorts of images that will more clearly present the information. One of the things that's a problem in this question when we're marking it is if applications are just all text-based, it becomes quite dry and heavy and hard to really see whether your marketing strategies and tactics have in fact achieved what you wanted to, and whether they in fact are creative and really exceptional. The next thing you need to do is prepare your story. So in this question, you need to have a really clear idea of what it is you want to communicate to the judges. What are the key messages you want to get across? What are the key strategies, goals and outcomes that you want to communicate, and sort of map them out, I guess, in terms of the question. So I like to think of this as a bit of a table of contents, if you like, so that you have dot points or sort of some sort of information flow or a word bubble or some sort of way where you can make sure that you don't miss anything, but that you really have a very clear narrative here for us to follow through what it was you were trying to do, your strategies, how you did it, your tactics, and then whether it was successful or not, and that's your measurement. The last thing that you need to make sure that in this preparation stage is that you have evidence to substantiate all of the claims. So this evidence can be data, ABS data, it can be your own customer data, visitor data, it could be data you get from QTIC and others, but you have to actually have evidence of the claims. So if one of your strategies was perhaps to attract a new target audience due to COVID, and maybe you're targeting families, then you need to actually show what proportion of your total market segmentation strategy that families would make up, and what proportion you actually achieved, and if there's a difference, why that difference occurred. So we're really looking for clarity. We're looking for lots of visual support or evidence of what you're talking about, as well as metrics and data. What were you trying to achieve? Your strategy needs to be really clear. How did you do it? How did you measure it? And what was the impact of it? And what did you learn from it? Because remember, you don't have to have achieved success in all of this, but you need to have learned something from it and be able to articulate that to the judges to show what that looks like in future strategies for your business.
That's fantastic, Jane. I think that's an excellent summary in terms of the approach and how people can prepare. And I love your point in terms of the using visuals because it's just going to communicate so much more quickly when it's such a big question that needs to be answered. So thank you. Sarah, listening to that, and I know you've judged before and you'll be judging again this year, what would you say that you're really wanting to get out of the response? What are you really looking for and as indicators for a really strong response?
Yep, thanks, Liz. Thanks, Jane. I suppose, ultimately what you need to do is take all of those materials that Jane has sort of referenced and frame them into a question. And this applies for all of the other questions as well. But frame it into a question that is easy to read, it's visual, it's interesting, and it tells your story. So, the judges in this instance, we're looking for some detail and clarity around the fact that you know and understand your target audience, and that the marketing that you are doing is relevant and connects directly to them, and that's part of your marketing promotion strategy. Now, this is a marketing question, so judges are definitely looking for something that's more than just text, as Jane has sort of said earlier. So this is a great opportunity for you to shine and sort of really think about how you're showing off your business in the best possible way using some graphics and images and testimonials. So even starting with something as simple as the target markets, using graphs or tables to actually demonstrate this is a great idea. Breaking down your audiences by interstate and intrastate. If you've got different sort of market segments, grey nomads, families, adventurers, etc. Show this in a really easy and visual way, and it's a great reference point for judges as they're reading through your submission to refer back to that and ensure that it's actually connecting with the rest of your answers. Then it's also about talking about how you've actually identified those as your audiences in the first instance. Have you captured specific detail at the point of booking, or are you talking to them as they're coming through the doors, capturing their postcodes, etc.? It helps to and use that data to then demonstrate or prove that you actually clearly know what your market is. If you're using external data, Jane referenced a couple of different options. There might be visitor data from other areas specific to your region. Make sure you elaborate and sort of demonstrate how you actually know you've gotten to your correct target audiences. Another thing to sort of think about in answering in this question is how you validate this on an ongoing basis, that the target market who you believe they are that are coming into you or who you're going after are the ones who are actually using your product, your experience. Is this through data that you're capturing through those bookings or via customer feedback, or is it from something else as well? And use this to support your response. This is also where, to Jane's point, the inclusion of a customer testimonial is really beneficial, and it connects back to that target audience scenario. So include a screenshot of a customer testimonial. It's a great proof point, and a good customer review is always fantastic to share, but make sure it's relevant. So if your primary market is family, then use a testimonial from a family about their experience of your product, rather than necessarily using another great testimonial from something that's not as relevant. The other thing, thinking about 2020, and it's a year that we've all probably wanted to forget, if you've found you've had to change tack and had to go after a new audience, explain how you went about that. Like, how did you research to identify that audience, the fit for your product, and what you might have actually done to change your product to facilitate that and the way that you market to approach that new market. I'd also expect that you probably found you may have had to do a few things a little differently in your marketing and promotions to reach, or in fact, in some instances, to reassure your audience, A, that you're open for business or that you're operating in a COVID-safe manner. And I think if you did, it's great to tell the story of how that worked for you. Did you find that coming through feedback or reviews from customers that they felt reassured, that they had the confidence to book? It's great information to actually share as part of this story. And it's also good to get into some of the detail here. And again, using the examples that Jane sort of suggested around social media posts, Collateral, any promotions that you do with your regional tourism organisation or Tourism Events Queensland, and include those in your response. And I think the penultimate for this, because judges are looking for the proof. It's great to say you did something and it worked incredibly well, but the proof is in the outcomes that you've generated as a result of that. So did your activity generate an increase in inquiries? Did you see new bookings? Did you see an increase in traffic to an offer or even specific information on your website about COVID activities or anything that particularly you needed to communicate? And use the data from all of your platforms and information to support this. So that might be booking numbers, it might be a percentage revenue uplift, it might be website analytics. And I guess at the base of this is sometimes marketing, in fact, frequently marketing doesn't necessarily perform as you expect. Now that can be a great story, or it can be, oh, we can do something better. It's part of the story, and if there's a learning that you've taken out of that and then you've subsequently adjusted your approach and seen a better result, that's a great story to share here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think you've explained that so well, and I think you've also layered on that context for people who have had to market in a different way to a different target market. And that's, you know, they might have experimented and tried things they'd never tried before, and maybe it didn't work too well, but then they changed and did something else. So it's really about telling that story, isn't it, and stacking it with evidence and being, as you say, I think the other key point that's come through here is, who was your target market? Did you change it? How did you market to them? What worked, what didn't? How do you know whether it worked or not? If that's my very short summary of all the fantastic information that's been provided. And I suppose just a last opportunity to say, you know, as judges, what are you particularly, Jane, what will you particularly be looking for after you listen to Sarah's comments and what you've shared? What do you think was really going to make a response pop for you?
So I guess coming back to the initial thing I said, it's about clarity of your message. So being really clear. Sometimes less is more, but also you need enough. So be really clear about what it is you're going to talk to us about. Spend the time to sort of write down 30 pages to come back to 2 pages of really good key strategic initiatives. So that clarity of thought is really what a great application differentiates a great application from just a good application. And really clear and careful use of that imagery, data visualization, and even theming through your response to just sort of keep tying it back in all the time to your overall strategic direction, your overall strategic approach. Those are the applications that really read well and score really well, and they score well at the national level too. So if you win at Queensland level and you go to the nationals, your application has to go as you've written it. There's no opportunity to change anything. So you really have to be thinking about not just how do you explain your story about what you do in terms of your Queensland competitors, but how can you stand out against your national competitors as well? And you can be sure that they're fierce competitors. So it's really looking for that cohesion and consistency, and a pleasure to read. You know, we read a lot of applications in 1 day or 2 days. So if you can actually help us out, you probably find you'll do much better than ones that are hard to wade through.
Any final tip from you, Sarah?
I think because writing a tourism award can be a big task. And there's lots of different sections, and I think in certain circumstances sometimes it's very easy to sort of put the same information in each section. And what I definitely encourage people to do is just make sure that the information is relevant to the question, and it might be more relevant to another question. If you're sort of finding that you're juggling between which section it sits in, pick one. Don't try and repeat too much. There's a tendency also, and it's a watch out, because I think we've all done it, to go refer to section such and such or refer to question such and such. If you're having to do that, what you're effectively asking a judge to do is to go back to another question to look at the response to the question they're actually currently reading. It makes it really difficult to understand and keep it in context. So if you're finding that you want to write that, challenge yourself to figure out whether or not the information in that other question is actually better sitting in the marketing question or better sitting in the introduction, for example. And I think it'll make it easier for you to be a little bit more succinct, not repetitive, and challenge you to keep things relevant. Ultimately, tourism operators are so passionate about their businesses, and we're really passionate about reading about your businesses and learning about them and seeing the things that are working so well for you. So it's really great if you can make sure that you tell that story as part of what you're doing and bring that passion out a little bit. and keep it interesting for us. Break it up with dot points and throw in the screen grabs that are relevant in answering and supporting your question as evidence. And it'll be a wonderful thing for us to read, and it'll be really great for us to mark.
That's
and
wonderful.
Just remember, if you're putting in images or screenshots or any of that, they need a caption. You need to tell us what it is we're looking at. That's a pet hate of some of the judges, so make sure everything's captioned and that it is the right image or the right testimonial for that section.
It's context, I guess, because we don't know your business as well as you do. So you might have seen something, you've seen it lots of times and you understand exactly what it is, but a judge who might be completely new to your business or your category really wants to understand that, and that's the benefit to it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. They're all great tips. And I want to add one other thing as I'm thinking about the marketing question, and that's to think about not only how the marketing activities that you've done to promote your own business and to get people to engage with it, but also think about your region as well, or other businesses in the region, how you have worked with them. So that's just my thought to throw into the mix there, because we know that we are always more successful when we do collaborate in the marketing space. So great. Well, thank you both so much, Jane and Sarah. I know that you've got a big judging season ahead of you, and we'll see you there. But QTIC and the judges look forward to bringing further webinars to help entrants along the way with their submission journey. And if you have any suggestions for topics, please forward them to the email address awards@qtic.com.au. And if you have any questions about the awards program, then check the QTIC website. And you can also contact the lovely Tracy Capes on that same email address, awards@qtic.com.au. So I would like to thank you all for watching this webinar and wish you every success with your submission. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Goodbye, everybody, and good luck.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, Jane.